On April 26, 1989, a devastating natural disaster struck the Maniganj district of Bangladesh, leaving a profound mark on history. The event, known as the Daulatpur and Saturia tornado, would go on to become the deadliest tornado ever recorded, claiming the lives of approximately 1,300 people. This tornado occurred during Bangladesh's peak tornado season, a time of year known for severe weather events due to the country's geographical location and its susceptibility to extreme storms. The tornado's impact was felt most strongly in the cities of Daulatpur and Saturia, which were right in its path. This area had already been suffering from a severe drought that had lasted for 6 months. Crops had withered, and the population had been praying for rain. Ironically, when the rains finally came, they arrived as part of a catastrophic weather system that produced this deadly tornado. Bangladesh, situated in the Ganges Basin, is no stranger to tornadoes. It experiences several tornadoes each year, most of them occurring in the months before and after the annual monsoon season. The conditions in this region are particularly favorable for tornado formation, as hot, moist air from the Bay of Bengal clashes with cool air from the Himalayas. In the days leading up to the Daulatpur and Saturia tornado, all the factors were lining up to create the perfect storm. The tornado itself struck a region already weakened by natural forces. Homes were poorly constructed and the population was largely rural, making it especially vulnerable to the intense power of the tornado. But few could have anticipated the sheer scale of the destruction that was about to be unleashed. As the tornado formed and intensified, no one could have predicted that this single event would soon be marked in history as the deadliest tornado ever recorded, forever changing the lives of those who experienced it and leaving a permanent scar on the region's landscape. With this brief overview, we set the stage for one of the most tragic natural disasters the world has ever seen. The formation of the Daulatpur and Saturia tornado was driven by a combination of weather patterns and atmospheric conditions that aligned perfectly to create one of the deadliest storms in recorded history. In the days leading up to April 26, 1989, a low-pressure system developed over Bihar and West Bengal, India. This system remained almost stationary, building pressure across the region, including Bangladesh, where the tornado would eventually strike. As the low-pressure system held its position, warm, moist air from the Bay of Bengal began flowing northeast into Bangladesh. At the same time, cold, dry air was flowing south from the Himalayas. This clash of air masses created the perfect conditions for severe thunderstorms. In the upper atmosphere, strong westerly winds from the jet stream further increased the instability. The jet stream, moving at speeds of over 150 miles per hour, created significant wind shear, a key factor in the development of the powerful thunderstorms that would ultimately spawn the tornado. On April 26th, the situation intensified. The ridge over China tightened the pressure gradient across Bangladesh, further fueling the storm system. By noon, severe thunderstorms began forming rapidly across the country. The most dangerous of these storms formed over western Bangladesh, where a dry line, an area where dry and moist air masses meet, served as a focal point for storm development. As the storms intensified, they developed into supercells, powerful, rotating thunderstorms capable of producing tornadoes. In this case, the extreme wind shear and atmospheric instability made conditions ideal for the formation of a tornado. At around 12:30 UTC, one of these supercells began rotating violently, and a tornado touched down near the town of Daulatpur in the Maniganj district. And the residents of the region, already living in the grip of a months-long drought, had little time to prepare. Tornado warnings were not widely available, and emergency systems were limited. The tornado touched down with little warning, rapidly gaining strength as it moved eastward towards Saturia. By the time it reached full force, it was cutting a path of destruction across the countryside. As the tornado formed and began its devastating journey, there were few ways to predict how powerful it would become or how many lives it would affect. The storm was building momentum, and within hours it would become one of the most catastrophic weather events the world had ever seen. On April 26, 1989, around 12:30 UTC, the Daulatpur and Saturia tornado began its path of destruction. As it touched down near Daulatpur, the storm quickly escalated into a monstrous force, moving eastward with terrifying speed. It soon struck the densely populated areas of Saturia, unleashing a level of destruction that no one could have anticipated. The tornado, with winds estimated to be between 210 and 260 miles per hour, tore through the landscape, creating a path of destruction nearly 50 miles long and over 1 mile wide. Entire villages were obliterated within minutes as the tornado flattened everything in its path. Homes, trees, and buildings were torn apart, leaving behind nothing but rubble. For the residents of the area, there was little time to react. The immense power of the storm meant that any shelter in the tornado's direct path was unlikely to provide protection. One of the hardest hit regions was Saturia, where the tornado reached its peak strength. The impact on the community was devastating. Reports from the aftermath describe scenes of total destruction. Entire neighborhoods leveled, with few structures left standing. The storm swept through with such intensity that the landscape was almost unrecognizable. The only remnants of once thriving villages were the skeletons of uprooted trees and scattered debris. Over the course of just a few hours, the tornado ravaged an area covering 150 square kilometers, leaving behind a trail of devastation. Families were separated, homes were destroyed, and livestock was lost. Even the crops that had survived the long drought preceding the storm were annihilated by the tornado's violent winds and the hailstorm that accompanied it. The death toll continued to rise as the full extent of the disaster became clear. In addition to the physical destruction, the human toll was staggering. Approximately 1,300 people were killed by the storm, with more than 12,000 others injured. The number of fatalities was so high in part because many homes in the area were poorly constructed and unable to withstand such a powerful tornado. Entire communities were left in ruins, with tens of thousands of people displaced and homeless. The tornado continued its destructive path for hours, leaving the towns of Daulatpur and Saturia among the hardest hit areas. Despite the widespread devastation, the tornado did not lose its strength quickly, continuing to cause significant damage until it eventually dissipated. As the tornado moved on, the full scope of the disaster became more apparent. Villagers were left to sift through the wreckage of their homes, searching for survivors, while emergency response efforts were hampered by the extent of the damage. The storm had left behind a nightmare of destruction, changing the lives of the people in its path forever. When the tornado finally dissipated, the extent of the damage left behind was nothing short of catastrophic. The Daulatpur-Saturia tornado not only wiped out homes and villages, but also caused unimaginable harm to the environment and the people who relied on it. The natural landscape, already suffering from a 6-month drought, was ravaged beyond recognition. Once fertile lands were reduced to barren stretches of debris, with uprooted trees and destroyed crops covering vast areas. More than 80,000 people were left homeless, as the tornado had obliterated everything in its path. Whole communities found themselves without shelter, food, or clean water. The infrastructure of the region, which was already fragile, was completely shattered. Roads were blocked by debris, making it difficult for emergency services to reach the hardest hit areas. Schools, hospitals, and markets were destroyed, leaving survivors without essential services. Those who had managed to escape the direct impact of the storm now faced a dire struggle for survival. In the immediate aftermath, the need for aid was critical. International organizations and local governments rushed to provide assistance, but the scale of the disaster overwhelmed relief efforts. Many of the injured did not receive medical attention for days, as the destruction of roads and communication systems made it nearly impossible to organize a rapid response. Thousands of people were left with untreated wounds, and the lack of medical facilities only compounded the suffering. The destruction of homes was so complete that rebuilding seemed an insurmountable task for the survivors. With limited resources, many people were forced to live in makeshift shelters, constructed from the remains of their former homes. Families huddled together in temporary huts made from salvaged wood and metal, trying to shield themselves from the elements. The trauma of losing loved ones, combined with the loss of homes and livelihoods, cast a long shadow over the survivors. Nature, too, bore the brunt of the storm's fury. The few crops that had managed to survive the drought were destroyed by the tornado, leaving entire regions without food. Livestock, a critical source of income and sustenance for many families, was decimated. The once vibrant fields were littered with dead animals and the remnants of farm structures. The landscape, once green and lush, had been transformed into a desolate wasteland. The combination of drought and tornado left the region with little hope for recovery in the near future. As days turned into weeks, the long-term impact of the tornado became clearer. Disease began to spread among the survivors, particularly in the overcrowded temporary shelters. The lack of clean water and sanitation facilities led to outbreaks of waterborne illnesses, further increasing the death toll. Hunger became an ever-present concern, as the loss of crops and livestock meant that there was little to sustain the population in the weeks following the disaster. The emotional toll was equally devastating. Entire families had been wiped out, and many survivors were left to mourn the loss of their loved ones. Communities that had once been tightly knit were shattered by the loss of lives and homes. The survivors faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives from the ground up, all while grappling with the grief and trauma left in the tornado's wake. The Daulatpur and Saturia tornado of 1989 stands as a grim reminder of nature's power and the vulnerability of communities living in its path. This disaster not only caused a staggering loss of life, but also left an indelible mark on the fabric of Bangladeshi society. While estimates suggest that approximately 1,300 people perished, the true toll may never be fully understood. The devastation stretched far beyond the physical destruction. It altered lives forever. In the years following the tornado, efforts were made to rebuild the affected areas. However, the journey to recovery was slow and fraught with challenges. Many families found themselves trapped in a cycle of poverty, struggling to find stable housing and regain a sense of normalcy. The landscape, which had once been a vibrant community, was transformed into a harsh environment where hope was often overshadowed by loss. The tornado also highlighted the urgent need for improved disaster preparedness in Bangladesh. In a country prone to natural disasters, the Daulatpur and Saturia tornado served as a wake-up call for the government and communities alike. It spurred discussions on enhancing early warning systems, building stronger infrastructure, and developing better emergency response plans. Communities began to understand the importance of awareness and education regarding tornadoes and other severe weather events, leading to initiatives aimed at reducing vulnerability in the future. In addition to raising awareness, the tornado prompted humanitarian organizations to focus on providing long-term support to affected families. Initiatives were launched to assist in rebuilding homes and infrastructure, while ensuring that families had access to basic needs like food and medical care. These efforts helped create a stronger foundation for the future. Though the scars of the past remained, the Daulatpur and Saturia tornado is more than just a historical event. It serves as a powerful reminder of the impact of natural disasters on lives and communities. The stories of loss and survival continue to resonate, urging us to prioritize disaster preparedness and resilience. As we reflect on this tragedy, we remember not only the lives lost, but also the strength and determination of the survivors, who faced unimaginable challenges and worked tirelessly to rebuild their lives. Ultimately, the legacy of the Daulatpur and Saturia tornado lives on in the hearts of those who experienced it. It is a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure in the face of disaster and a call to action for future generations to be better prepared for the challenges that nature may bring.